Once you decided to write, what was the feedback that you got from the people who've seen you behind camera for a very long while? What exactly was the reaction from people?
It's a lonely business.
Okay.
It's tough. There is no two ways about it. The writing part is tough. And it requires more than anything else.
Now, give me your honest opinion. Books or TV shows? Why a spy fiction? And how was your research process like? How did you build your characters? And as a new writer, this would have been a huge task, a humongous task to actually build that plots, build in the characters, give them definition.
Why can't we figure out how it started?
How do you describe a raw agent?
X Factor, we did the subsequent seasons of India's Got Talent.
Have a belief that a lot of things are scripted and it's not as much reality is as it is supposed to be. Is it? Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Next Show with Naghma. And today I have with me an author who's been in the entertainment industry for over 30 years. Entertainment in general terms means different things to each and every one of us. For some, it's just a good pastime when we have nothing to do. For some, it's very serious business. It could be a movie, it could be something else outdoor, it could be a book. How you choose to entertain yourselves, that's something else altogether. But then, yes, there's a big industry that exists in this complete creating a world of entertainment for you and me to consume. Today I have with me somebody so experienced in this industry, been in amazing companies like NDTV, been a host, been a moderator, been a multiple things here, and today he's written a book. And we are here to talk about his new book, Raw Material, and I would love to invite Arpit Agarwal onto the next show. Welcome, Arpit.
Thank you, Naghma. Thank you for calling me.
More than happy to. So my very first question to you, what does entertainment mean to you?
What does entertainment mean to me? I guess an escape. We lead busy lives, and when you get back home, you need something to watch, something that helps you deal with the day and makes you relax and get prepared for the next day. Something that lightens your mood, makes you forget about your worries, I guess.
Yeah. I was expecting a more complicated answer, some technical terms from the industry, but okay, good to know that you're somebody like us, so we are good. So coming from an industry like that of movies, TV shows, and you worked with some amazing TV shows from your during your duration in the industry. Now you've chosen to become a writer. That's a huge shift. Why the shift and what really inspired you for that?
Well, I guess I've been a content person and a storyteller. I just didn't know that my story could come out in the form of a book. So my chosen medium was television. It still is my favorite medium. And I guess the story was inside me and willing to come out. And I just felt that writing it would be a great experiment, a great thing to try. And I've been reading, not so much now, but in my growing years I used to read a lot. Spy fictions, all kinds of stuff. And my friends and family had more faith in my writing abilities than I had. So they encouraged me, and here it is.
Well, I was about to ask that question, that once you decided to write, what was the feedback that you got from the people who've seen you behind camera for a very long while? What exactly was the reaction from people?
I didn't tell too many people that I'm writing. I only shared it with a few, close friends and family, because I was very nervous, to be honest, and I felt that I could get swayed easily. Friends, people who don't know me that well, they could say that no, it's a tough business, don't do it. Why would someone read an Indian author, and that to a spy thriller? When you walk into a shop and then you see a Tom Clancy and an Arpit Agarwal, why would someone pick up your book? And so this is what I knew. I just didn't want to hear it from other people. And I had, in a sense, made up my mind that I really wanted to do this. So I shut myself off and just wrote.
And how has the journey been for you? Was it as tough as people warned you about?
It's a lonely business.
Okay.
It's tough. There
Mm-hmm.
is no two ways about it. The
Mm.
writing part is tough.
Mm.
And it requires more than anything else.
Mm.
Apart from the ability to tell a story,
Okay.
it requires a tremendous amount of self-discipline,
Okay.
which I'm not known for.
Okay.
So I've discovered it.
Makes
Uh,
sense.
I've discovered it, and it's been very satisfying.
Okay.
That discovery has been really, really
Okay.
insightful.
So, what is your take? Because you worked with TV shows for many years, and now you're in the world of books. And in general, also there is a lot of people who talks and about books, telling that it's a very boring thing. Why would you want to spend so much of time reading fiction, especially for fiction? That is, why would you want to waste so much of your time where you get better experience just sitting in front of your TV? So now you've been on the both sides, right? Now give me your honest opinion: books or TV shows?
Well, I really wouldn't want to be in a position where I have to make a hard choice
Okay.
between, fiction book or OTT series.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a difference.
Yeah.
When you're watching something on television,
Okay.
there is zero imagination on your part. It's
True.
completely pre-packaged,
Yeah.
and your only job is to
Yeah.
consume it.
Yeah.
You can't. Do you stop and pause it and think and imagine? No one does that.
You
You
don't
just
add
keep on
on.
consuming
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of a book. There are no pictures. Uh, there is a description sometimes,
Yeah.
but how you decipher the description is really
Yeah.
up to your own imagination. And for each person, it's going to be different. Even if I say green, there's hundreds of shades of green. You will decide which shade you want
Yeah.
the person to be wearing, for instance. So, books, therefore, are a bit more intimate.
Okay.
You can stop it, you can pick it up again, you can take it wherever you are, and you can't always do that with watching something
Yeah.
off a screen. So
Yeah.
there is a difference.
This is something that I've been trying to explain to a lot of people. Please, my editing editor, please ensure this is cut into a reel for later. I think a lot of people needs to hear that. So now coming to raw material, why a spy fiction? You
Why
could have
spy
literally
fiction?
written about anything. Your own work experience of the last 30 years would have converted into an amazing content for a book. But why leave all of that and get into spy fiction?
Okay, I don't think a book on me would anybody would buy unless I forced them at a gunpoint. But why spy thriller? Well, I guess because I spent a lot of time
Again.
for a while distributing spy thrillers in the television format
Okay.
across South Asia.
Okay.
And that really had a huge impact on me. But if I roll back a bit, I have always been interested in
Okay.
stories around actual events,
Okay.
geopolitics. My favorite genre when I'm watching television are historical documentaries or things that have really happened. Just
Okay.
to give an example, Munich,
Yeah.
the movie,
Yeah.
it's a story, it's a film,
Yeah.
but it's based on actually what really happened. Same with
True.
Argo, with Ben Affleck. These are my favorite kind of stories. So when I decided to write something, it was but obvious that it would have to be a spy thriller.
Okay. So how come while you started writing, you picked there's Tibet, there's China, there's India, and India has very little to do in that book altogether. And this was something unexpected. I mean, to be very honest, when an Indian author is writing something, we as readers, we're expecting, when you started the book with a history or some incidences happening in the early 50s, happening in Tibet, I'm like, okay, somewhere these people are going to travel to India and the incidents are going to happen in India. But that did not happen. You decided to stick to these other places. There were incidents happening one after the other in these places. Why that? And how was your research process like? Because these could be, you might have traveled, but in a lot way unknown territory for you as well. So how did this turn out to be?
So, Naghma, Netflix has taught us
Okay.
that where the story is located is not that important if the story is engaging. So today, when you're watching any international series, you don't really care whether it's been whether it's from Ireland or
Yeah.
Finland or from Mexico.
Yeah,
If
true.
the story is engaging,
Mm-hmm.
it grips you.
Mm-hmm.
You can, you have the option of choosing your language.
Yeah.
You can, even in Hindi or
Yeah.
English or whatever.
Yeah.
So for me, I didn't need it to be based out of India.
Okay.
I just wanted it to have danger and intrigue and an element of surprise in it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'm an Indian, and I live here. I obviously wanted it to be based out of India.
Yeah.
So the story, though starts outside, it does finish here in India.
Interesting. So when you pick the characters, and yes, as I told you before, there's one character in your book who I've fallen in love with, and she is amazing. So how did you build your characters? And as a new writer, this would have been a huge task, a humongous task to actually build that plots, build in the characters, give them definition. So how did you build your characters, and how exactly did you fit each of those characters in the right buckets?
I built my characters as I went along.
Okay.
I'm not one of those writers who had, for instance, a big whiteboard on which I'm taking notes and I'm deciding that, okay, I'm going to give this person this kind of a character and he or she will have this kind of hair and, no, I just wrote and it just came to me.
Yeah.
And if it made sense to me, I went with it. Otherwise, no. And once the book was over, in the editing aspects of it, that's when I really threshed out the story, the plot, the characters.
Okay.
You'll be surprised to know that for the longest time, I had not given any physical description of Vijay, the hero. And that came really in the last moment.
Okay.
I just added a paragraph because people wanted to know that give us some idea, give us something to go with.
Okay.
So
interesting. But okay, I would love to actually counter that point. The way that you've described your characters, I personally felt as a reader that you gave me the freedom as a reader to imagine the character to be whatever I wanted them to be. Then, okay, there is some place where you're explaining Vijay to be lean. Okay, so then, wherever I pictured him before, earlier, I think in my imagination, he had a big belly. Then I changed it. Okay, no, this guy is fit because when in the start of the chapters, he was slightly older. So that's how I imagined him. But every characters, let it be Wei or let it be Pema or anybody like that, I personally felt that you actually did an amazing job because you gave me the freedom to imagine whatever I wanted with these characters. So what was your plan on how did you want the readers to perceive the characters, and what was exactly the reaction from readers?
So Naghma, I'm glad you caught that because that was my intention.
Okay.
I didn't want to physically describe my characters too much.
Yeah.
Let the readers decide.
Yeah.
I did want to give them a character. The person is gregarious or has anger issues or has a terrible diabolical mind, those aspects.
Yeah.
But the physical description is really up to my readers to decide. Having said that, I did have to put something.
Okay.
As I said, that Vijay's description was included only in the last edit.
Interesting. So another very intriguing part of the book for me was that you added elements from the pandemic. And this was something, I wouldn't say it was refreshing to hear. That's very bad of me to tell that. But then a good thriller from the basis of what really happened or how the pandemic came into being or how the virus spread. Okay, without spoilers, there was something very interesting. So how did you land upon that topic?
So I have been I've been a journalist before, not necessarily a news journalist, but I was reporting more on technology and stuff like that. And that instilled in me a lifelong interest in news and current affairs. And I keep abreast. So when the pandemic started, it's just something that I started following. Especially, it piqued my interest that why can't we figure out how it started? And then, of course, I read about the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And I was pretty much gobsmacked that it must come from there. What are the chances that it didn't come from there? And then I began, reading more, and Trump was the president at that time. And he was the first to claim that this is the China virus. It's come from China. And the moment he said that, the entire liberal media, they decided to oppose him, as they normally do.
Yeah.
And then this entire discussion took on a political tone,
Yeah.
which it didn't have to,
Yeah.
but it did.
Yeah.
And I felt that somehow the truth behind the origin just got lost in that political tussle. So I'm not taking any side as such, because I don't know how it started. But I just found the plot very interesting,
Okay.
and I said, why don't I write a what if scenario? Let's see, could this have been possible?
Okay.
But what's interesting is that when I was writing, I had very little to go by.
Okay.
But now in 2025, as more and more spy agencies across the world are coming out with their findings, my story is not that off the mark.
Yeah.
Or so it appears.
Yeah. So did any backlashes happen once your story came out?
No.
Because in a way, people can also tell that you're trying to point something to somewhere. So it's any way that affected.
No, I'm not trying to point. I'm just offering a what if scenario.
Okay.
I have absolutely no idea how it started.
Okay.
It could very well be benign and it's really zoonotic and it's come from bats. Who knows? But I just find the plot irresistible. And that's really why I've picked it. And there's been no backlash, and I hope it stays that way.
Okay. So in the book, you're talking about secret agencies, raw agents, military force, a lot of things. So while you were writing the book, did you in real interact with any of these people? Did you get content from them, experiences from them, or not specifically for the book, or even previously while during your work as a journalist?
Yes, I did meet a few people who have worked in our spy agencies, but I can't name them because they spoke to me on conditions of anonymity.
Okay.
But the book is very heavily researched. I was telling somebody that it's 2 parts research, 1 part writing. And the more you read it, the more you will realize that it's really very heavily researched. From dates to how offices look like, to technology used, everything. It's very heavily researched.
So how do you describe a raw agent?
Well, you will know one.
But how? Like what would
They're
there
just ordinary
be?
people like you and me. They just have a job to do, and they go about doing it.
And I'm very curious.
You could be one. How do I know?
Like that's what you could be one. Like, do they necessarily have to be very fit, very good at their workout, very, very good with their all lung capacity? Do they have to be people like that, or it could just be anybody?
I think there could be anybody. I think not just raw, but spy agencies across the world, they just want to take in normal people. We've grown up watching James Bond, so we have this idea that the spy
exactly what
looks
I
like,
had.
Daniel Craig, but that's not really true.
Interesting. Okay. So coming back to the book, how did you land upon the title?
Raw material?
Yeah.
I was just punning. It's a great pun.
Okay.
RAW, of course, stands for research and analysis wing.
Yeah.
And there is such a thing as raw material. Every factory has one.
Yeah.
So I just found it interesting.
That interesting led initially when the book was coming out, or when the very first time I was coming for your book launch, I was trying to check out about the book on Amazon. I'm typing raw material. I have no idea where my search results were getting. I think Amazon itself got confused in terms of trying to figure out what raw material am I searching for. Then yes, it was a very funny experience for me, because later I had to type in your full name to actually start. This before the book was there out in the market, before in a long time while ago. But initially raw material was like that. So title, yes. I personally feel the cover of the book is very well thought of. Can you give, now that I've read the book, I think I understand a lot of the elements that you've added onto the book, but then from the horse's mouth, if you can just give me a brief on what the book cover is all about.
So first of all, if you are searching for the book, it's simpler to just type my name. It's Arpit Agarwal, because Amazon gets confused with there's an ampersand. So are you supposed to put it or not?
Yeah.
Are you supposed to have R.A.
Yeah.
So it's confusing.
Yeah.
If you just type my name, you'll
Yeah.
find the book.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to the cover, so we designed it in-house. I have somebody called Abhik who works with us. He designed it and he's done a brilliant job. So it's basically Wei, our villain, who is trying to control Vijay, our hero, through,
Puppet.
turning him into a puppet.
Mm.
And Vijay is actually trying to exert his own free will and breaking away from the strings. So if you can see this carefully, some strings are not
Oh.
attached.
Okay.
This has snapped, for instance.
Yeah.
This has also snapped.
Yeah.
So he's exerting his own free will,
Hmm.
trying to get away from Wei's clutches.
Okay. Oh wow! I never noticed that snapping part of it. Oh, makes sense now.
So there's
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And then, of course, Wei is a Chinese spy agent, and he's trying to infiltrate our spy agency, RAW, and that explains the hammer and sickle, which is in the title. And if you go further, here you see the Potala. That's where the palace of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And if you can see here and here, there's a little map here,
Okay.
and this is more or less the journey that the Dalai Lama took when he came to India, through the mountains
Yeah.
and into Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's his journey.
Okay. So not just the book, the cover is also pretty much heavily researched.
It is heavily researched, yes.
So it looks like not just your writing, but the cover was also pretty much well researched. Now, talking about the research, in the book, your different locations that you're talking about, starting from, say, in Delhi, there are incidences happening in the Connaught Place, or you were talking about Nobulinka, where Dalai Lama he had his residences, but it was bombed, and all of those scenarios happened. He's traveling to India. There are incidences in Wuhan that you're talking about, and even the minute detailing, even in a Chinese fish market, it was so visually detailed for a reader to completely imagine. We were traveling with the holiness while he was traveling to India. So it was very visually appealing to a reader. But I'm sure this would have taken a lot of research. So for the book, while you said that this is very well researched, it's 2 parts research and 1 part writing. How exactly was this research process? How long was the research process? And what all did you do to come to this book finally?
So, Naghma, that's a great question. What I did is, my story plays with 2 things.
Yeah.
There is one part is about the Tibet, the
Mhm.
Tibetan uprising,
Yeah.
which resulted in His Holiness's exile to India.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. Finding facts and figures about the Tibetan uprising
Yeah.
is very easy. It's
Yeah.
all there. It happened, 50
Yeah.
years ago, 60 years ago. So it's all there. There are books, there are movies,
Mm-hmm.
there are podcasts,
Mm.
and there's, of course, Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And wherever I've been able to give a proper source. I've
Mhm.
actually mentioned it in the
Yeah,
back of the
you
book.
have.
And I've read all kinds of stuff,
Mhm.
but most of it online.
Okay.
It was difficult to get a lot of information about COVID-19 because
Mhm.
it just happened recently
Hmm.
in relative terms.
Mm.
And of course, because it's so political, you had to do the research twice over
Okay.
to be sure that you are not getting, waylaid
Okay.
into some other conspiracy
Hmm.
theory
Hmm.
or someone's version of the truth.
Yeah.
So that was difficult for sure.
Ah, interesting. So now, coming back to your experiences in the media industry or you being a journalist, how different was this experience for you? Because research, you would have done a lot of research when you created your shows also. And if you told me that you were a journalist, that again comes into picture. But how different was your experience?
It was fun. That's all I can say. The
Okay.
research part, because I'm researching for something that's close to me.
Okay.
I'm researching something that actually interests me,
Hmm.
rather than a chore that someone else has
Hmm.
asked me to do.
Okay.
So it was just fun.
Okay.
And what was difficult was sifting through the research to decide what to keep, what not to keep.
Hmm.
And I, of course, decided to err on the side of the story. The story has to be interesting, gripping, and it has to keep moving forward. So a lot of stuff that I had actually kept, in the eventual edits, I had to remove them. And I realized that I kept them simply because I had researched it.
Because you had the information.
Because I had the information, I just felt that I should give it. But then I was not doing justice to the story.
Yeah.
So then I removed it later on.
Interesting. So now, because I'm very curious about your professional experiences also in the entertainment industry, you could call it. How did you get into this industry?
It was quite a chance, really. In 1995, in the winter of 95, I joined a news organization, NDTV, and that really changed my life. And I'm eternally grateful to the owners, Radhika and Pranay Roy, for have given me the chance at that time.
So what did you join as at that point?
I joined, so it's very funny you ask. When I joined, I really had no idea what I'm getting into. I just knew it's a news organization, but I didn't know how a news organization works. And that department.
We still have no clue.
And you got to be in some department. And in my interview, I was asked, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a reporter? Do you want to be in production? And I said, I'm not sure I know the difference. And I'm one of those lucky ones, perhaps the only one, who was actually given a choice. So I was told that why don't you spend 1 week with reporters and another week on the production side, and then you decide.
Interesting.
So I spent a week with reporters, and I was very scared that, oh my God, this would mean that at some point I would have to face the camera. And that was so scary a thought. I said, no, I can't do this. So I went to production.
Oh, really? I think you would have done very well in front of a camera.
So funny thing is that later on, I think in my 5th year or something, my bosses said that, no, you should be in front of the camera. So they asked me to host a couple of shows, which I did. But it was not easy for me. And even now, I'm someone who's very happy, in the background, working away. I'm not really comfortable talking to people in front of the camera.
So from NDTV then to where? Because you've traveled a lot also during this entire professional life. So where did you move to from there?
So NDTV really shaped the career trajectory. I knew that I wanted to be in television. It was great fun, great learning. But I wanted to try different genres. So news is short bites, limited time, limited budgets. And I then moved to Singapore, where I worked with companies which were producing very high-level documentaries for Discovery and National Geographic. So that's long format.
Wow.
So I worked in that for a while. I was also the first person, you'll be surprised, to create videos for the mobile phone. This is in 2004 in Singapore.
Means like videos for the mobile phone?
So I was at one time working for a company which was very closely associated with Nokia. It was actually owned by Nokia. And Nokia had come out with the S60 platform, which essentially meant that they had put a television screen in your mobile. But they had no idea that if there's a screen, then people want to see something in it other than just numbers and contact names. But they're a boring technology company. And media was something they just didn't understand. And I was just the person who was there at the right time.
Oh, wow.
And I made a pitch that I'll create some videos. And they said, this is new, we've never done it before. So I drew up a proposal. I went and got funds from the government of Singapore. And I created 3 series. Which today we just call reels. I actually made 3 series in 2004 in Singapore. And they were embedded in the Nokia handset. So that was really fun and pretty
that's crazy.
Avant-garde that way,
Wow, that's like amazing. So then to where? Now I'm very curious. From there to where?
So that was Singapore. Then I came back to India and I jumped into the entertainment industry for a while in Delhi, but then eventually in Bombay. I was with Balaji and I was with Fremantle. Balaji, of course, is the world's biggest producer of fiction. No one makes more fiction hours per day or per month than Balaji does. That's scripted. And then I was at Fremantle. I was part of the founding team, and that was great fun as well. We launched X Factor. We did the subsequent seasons of India's Got Talent and
Wow.
Indian Idol. So that was
Wow.
pretty heady days. Great team, great
Hmm.
colleagues.
Oh,
We
wow.
worked really hard and we partied a lot as well.
Oh my God, that's
So
amazing. This is some of
make
the
some
shows that all of us been always watching. As Indian
yeah.
Idol, for example. Oh wow, that's like amazing. So this is like a huge chunk of work that you have actually produced for the big population in India to consume. Was there a favorite show that you liked, like personally?
Well,
Not because you worked, but then yeah.
to start with, I can't say that I have produced it because
Yeah.
television is a group activity.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just one of the people who's part of the team.
Mhm.
And coming to your question about something that has been close to me,
Yeah.
it's hard to say, but I really enjoyed Indian Idol
Okay.
because you get to see people from all kinds of places in
Yeah,
India
yeah.
with amazing backstories
Yeah.
coming and pitching their talent in front of an audience
Wow.
and hoping against hope that people will like them and they get voted.
Mm.
So you see, it's an emotional roller coaster where you see people win and people lose, and when they win they cry, when they lose they cry, and you're standing there watching it happen,
Yeah.
not on a screen but in real
In
life,
real.
and it's a very moving experience.
Wow. So were you
So-
part of the show when Abhijit Sawant became the Indian Idol?
No, I was not
Oh.
part of that particular season. I was part of the later seasons after that.
Oh, one of my favorite singers. But that's very interesting. So this is completely off the topic. Reality shows, like we put it today. I think it's a lot of people have a belief that a lot of things are scripted and it's not as much reality is as it is supposed to be. Is it?
Depends which show you're talking about. I can only
Okay.
talk about the ones that we produced
Mm.
at Fremantle.
Okay.
They are 100% authentic. They're audited.
Mm.
We, in fact, the show's Bible
Yeah.
mandates
Yeah.
that you have to have the services of one of the big four audit firms.
Mm.
So it's to that level it's audited. So there's no
Lovely.
question of any hanky-panky at all.
Okay, good.
I'm talking about X Factor, I'm
um,
talking about
yeah.
India's Got Talent
Mm.
and Indian Idol.
Okay.
They would lose their
I'll
credibility.
feel more comfortable watching
Yeah.
them. Okay, that
So
makes
what's
sense.
audited is the process.
Yeah.
What's audited is who wins.
Mm.
That's purely by chance.
Amazing.
But what the creators decide is at the first flush of people who come in,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of people to let in the initial filter.
Makes sense.
So the trick there is to get some great singers
yeah.
or people with real talent
Yeah.
and some really bad ones.
Okay.
You don't get people in the middle.
Okay.
No one is interested in mediocrity. You only want to listen to the people who inspire you or the people who make you laugh at the bottom.
Okay.
So that's something I learned in the
Mm.
trade.
Interesting. So while you traveled to a lot of places in India, abroad, creating or working with your production, working with your teams, but even before that also, I understand, starting from your education, you've traveled, you've been in different parts of India for your education as well, starting from Pondicherry for your schooling. How was the experience? And personally, this is a very a place which is very well personally connected to me. So have the place Pondicherry or your education from the Aurobindo ashram, did it help shaping you to whom you are today?
You've done more research than you should have. But thank you.
Personally connected to the place.
But yes, I'm a North Indian,
Mm.
but I really grew up in South India.
Mm.
I was very fortunate to grow up in the Shorbando Ashram school. And of course, it's shaped who I am.
Mm.
I don't necessarily know how,
Okay.
but it's part of me.
Mm.
So I was, I did my schooling there. Then I spent a couple of years in Auroville, which is next door.
Yeah.
And through all these experiences that I've had in television, in the different places that I've lived in, the different people I've met, whether it's in India or Singapore, they all find some kind of, resonance in the book.
Okay.
It's hard to point where, what. Like, for instance, my villain is called Wei. I actually know a couple of Weis, in my days in Singapore,
Yeah.
people who are very close to
Yeah.
me. So I've taken their name because I
Yeah.
just found the name very interesting,
Okay.
and stuff like that. So there's a bit of me in the book across everywhere.
Why I felt curious about this, to be very honest, is somebody with your background, somebody who's writing a spy thriller. I had a different image of a person altogether. Sorry for if I have been judgmental, but then once I met you, you were somebody so calm, composed. I felt you to be very grounded. And then somewhere when I got to understand your background coming from the Aurobindo ashram, I was like, that could be the place that keeps you like that. So why I ask that question is also because the entertainment industry is something where people like me or my parents or the general audience in India, we judge the place telling that, okay, this is the place for parties, this is the place for players. So there's a lot of judgments that actually come into picture. How was your experience overall, personally, being in that industry, now then balancing your professional life and your personal life, working around in this very hardcore, loud industry? How was that for you?
Yeah, the transition has not been easy for sure. First of all, about your point about me being a calm person, that's just
Sure.
it's just a show that I put up. I really am not.
Okay.
And if you ask my friends and family, they will definitely tell you
Okay.
he's anything but calm.
Okay.
It's just something that I not necessarily put on, but it, that's how I look, but it's not. How has the transition been
Yeah.
from a small, quiet town to this raucous industry? Tough,
Okay.
really, really tough. But that's part of growing up. What do you do?
Yeah.
It's a tough industry.
Yeah.
You got to be on your feet all the time. You got to be aware of what's happening, especially if you're in the news industry. There's stuff happening all the time, and you need to stay abreast of it. And television is a very demanding industry because a deadline,
Yeah.
unlike any other industry or
Yeah.
most industries,
Yeah.
it's not negotiable.
Yeah.
If you have to put a show on air at 8 p.m., it just has to go on
Yeah.
air at 8 p.m.
True.
So you got to just work backwards. There's no space for complacency or
Yeah.
that let's have a lunch break and then we'll talk about it. There's no time for that.
Okay. What
So it's tough.
next for you? I understand you still currently you run your own company, your own agency, right? And writing is also on plate for you. So what do you do currently, and what is in future?
So I've been in the television industry for about 30 years now, and there was a career break. And rather than get, you know, search for a job,
Okay.
I decided to write a book
Okay.
because I just told myself that okay, I've never done something like writing, and this requires dedication, and I have the time.
Yeah.
So I spoke to my family. They were like, okay, we can give you some time. Off you go.
Okay.
So I did this. What the future has in store, I really don't know. Let's see. I'm exploring all kinds of options. I do run a small company, and that's one thing that I'm pursuing. But I'm open to all kinds of stuff.
Are you working on any new ideas for the book?
Yes and no. I do have a couple of ideas. Have I started, actually writing? No.
Okay. And what are you seeing your future with your company? I understand that's also completely into digital marketing. It's still somewhere you're still connected to the entertainment industry. How are you seeing that?
We are into PR and digital marketing, and we have a bunch of clients, and we do all kinds of stuff for them, right from website design to brochure designs to bespoke networking and a whole bunch of it. And you can visit our website to know more, and you can contact me if you want to avail of our services.
Interesting. So one very last question from my end. You've had a plethora of experiences in anything, starting from, like how you said, a small town in Pondicherry, leading a very calm, trained, disciplined life, moving to an industry which is so demanding, so loud, so exposed, then picking up a role of a writer, your personal family, your travel, everything put together, the experiences or the exposure that you've got is huge. It's cannot even be compared to a lot of other people. one instance in your life that completely changed you.
Oh, that's a tough question. But it completely changed me.
Yeah.
Well,
In
at
a
a,
good or a bad way, however you put it, but one instance that you want to share.
well, at a personal level, I would say it's I lost my mother,
Okay.
and that really made me pause and reevaluate my life. So that was a tough one. Yeah,
Sorry to hear that.
yeah. Well,
And professionally?
professionally, what changed me? I'm not sure because they've been.
Or evolved or changed, like you can put it in any way you want.
I'm not sure. I'll have to think of any one thing that was, that was so important. Because what's happened is news is very different from entertainment.
Yeah.
So I've not grown only news. I've only grown in television. So I've moved from different genres, and each genre is has its own pulls and pushes and demands, and uh, the one thing common in all of them is that the technology remains the same. The deadlines
Yeah.
are similar.
Yeah.
News is more immediate.
Yeah.
If it's entertainment, it could be maybe a week or 10 days down the line. So, but it's interesting that you're working in an industry where you have to be very responsible about what you're putting on air,
Yeah.
because a whole bunch of people are going to see it. They're going to, it may change their life. So you've got to be careful what you're saying. And I've used that experience even in the book. I've tried to be very responsible in my writing. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone.
Yeah.
I'm not castigating any government or any body as such.
Thank you so much, Arpit. That was a huge, a meandering journey for me personally, starting from your book to your experience to your personal life. That was a wonderful journey. And thank you so much for the conversation. And I really do hope you figure out what story you want to write about next, because this one is bang on, and I loved your writing style. And thank you so much for bringing the book, something so different from a lot of spy thrillers that we've been reading, something very different. So thank you so much for doing that for the readers. Thank you so much for being part of the next show. I mean, we're so glad that you dropped in today. And any last message that you want to give to our audience?
So first of all, thank you for having me. And it's very sweet of you to have done so much of research. I'm quite overwhelmed actually. And guys, she's someone who really is passionate about reading books and about the book industry. I was having a chat with her just before we hit the record button, and it's rare to see someone so passionate about something that they do. So please support her, press like, subscribe, share this video, and pick up this book.
Thank you so much. You've done my marketing part. Thank you so much for that. And guys, we will be back again with another amazing story and another amazing book to dive deep into the person who actually bringing these books. Because books you can always go back and read. But what about the people behind these books? That's what we are here to figure out. Thank you, Arpit, for today. And we'll see you back with another episode.